Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, February 19th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So at 1845, the Board of Selectmen opened an executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 124, Section 1B, and Mass General Law, Chapter 4, Section 7, Clause 26, to discuss financial assistance to a resident in need. From then, we adjourned, and now we're into this meeting. On tonight's agenda, we have Bonnie Combs from the Blackstone Heritage Quarter to discuss the annual townwide cleanup. We have appointments to the Personnel Board, and then for the discussion items, we have a right of first refusal to a 40B project, a one-day liquor license for BBT, acceptance of some donations for the Council on Aging, possible reimbursement of a town official due to vandalism, and the DPW budget. Let's see, skip over minutes. Is Mrs. Combs here?
Yes,
Good evening, Mrs. Combs. Mrs. Combs is here to talk about the annual townwide cleanup. This will be the third year.
thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. So yes, I'm from the Blackstone Heritage Quarter. We have a trash responsibly program, and we work with communities to help do cleanup events. We utilize our volunteers and parks program for the National Park Service, which provides volunteers with liability coverage and provides safety vests, litter pickers, and gloves. It works different in every community as to how this comes about. Certain towns I work directly with Board of Health, some towns I work directly with DPW, other towns it's a collage of people. The first year that I reached out, I called the Board of Health, Diane, and asked about it, and it was something like a new concept, I guess, here. And so I tried to explain that it's very easy for us to do. We just need your consent. We have the liability. We just need a way to remove the trash. So again, that's different in every town depending on their hauler. Some are pay as you throw, some are municipal, some pay directly. So the first year we worked with Vincent Roy and a local resident, Laura Wall. And again, it was a very small collaborative effort, but we pulled in 100 volunteers the first year. It was amazing. Yep. We had a really great day. Milford Daily News came, excuse me, did a great story. So it gave Upton a lot of PR, and so the second year, again, I reached out to Vincent, he left, and then I met with Dennis. And we had another successful event. Again, about 100 people came out and volunteered, and there's been no incident. We've had support from the Selectmen and people running for office, and Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, the Men's Club, all kinds of people. Local businesses donate. So we look forward to offering this again and helping keep your community clean this year.
So I know tentatively the date's scheduled for April 27th, 2019.
Right. So what I do is I reach out. I'm currently working with 4 main communities, and the reason why it's 4 is the month of April, it has like 4 weeks. Once you get beyond April, the weeds start growing in, the ticks come in full force, it gets pretty ugly. So I kind of offer it first come, first serve. So at the time I had April 13 and 27 open, and I still do. The only conflict that might come about, and we could talk to them, is Park Serve Day is going to be April 27 this year. So Upton State Forest will be doing their Park Serve Day. It's happened to me in Uxbridge before. We've run the Uxbridge Town Cleanup alongside Park Serve Day at Riverbend Farm. And they're 2 different events completely. The town event is about cleaning up the streets full of litter, and then the Park Serve Day is more about supporting the park, taking down broken branches, cleaning trails, a lot of different work. In Uxbridge, Park Serve Day ran 9 to 3, whereas the town cleanup was 9 to noon. So we promoted both at the same time to give families the option. So if you couldn't do the morning town cleanup event, you would then have the afternoon to do the Park Serve Day. So I'm not aware, I asked for support to find out of any conflicts in town on either of those days. I know where I live in Blackstone, there was an Easter egg hunt on the 13th, there was a trout fishing derby on the 27th, baseball is a big one. So I worked with Uxbridge to find out when their opening day is. So I just wanted to work for you and your community, so I left those 2 dates open for you to consider.
I don't know of any conflicts, so neither one do you?
No, I did see some email traffic last week, and I think there's going to be a conversation with Conservation Commission regarding cleanup day and coordinating that with Park Serve Day.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's to our advantage by doing it on the same day, or it's our disadvantage because we lose volunteers. What's your experience, Ben?
I've had no problem in Uxbridge doing the two events because again, well, Uxbridge is a pretty big town, but they serve different audiences and different supporters. The Friends of Upton State Forest does have a core group. I'd be interested to talk with the Conservation Commission to see how we can collaborate. And maybe we can talk offline with the
Sure.
Friends of Upton State Forest. And if everybody feels good about it, to make it just one big, super big event and give people options, that would be great. And then we could come back to you with our findings.
Yeah, I mean, I would think the 20, it would tend to be warmer, the 27th.
Yes, this is
So if
true.
we get those extra 2 weeks down the road, I would think
Okay.
that would be to our advantage.
Mhm.
And if you think that, we won't have an issue where we're gonna end up splitting our crowd or splitting our interest,
Mhm.
if you found in the past that there isn't that issue, then I think the 27th sounds good with me.
Yeah.
So you want me to report back to you? We'll do some reconnaissance and get back to you and find out.
Yeah, if we work together on this, we can,
Okay.
I can report back to the board, let them know what we decided on in the end,
Super.
knowing that 27th, I think, is the priority.
And I noticed one thing I'd love to request is, one year we were here and the community board was empty, so it would be great to get something on your sign out front, Upton Cleanup Day.
Sure,
Okay,
definitely can do that, yep.
super.
Mrs.
Okay.
Haggerty?
Just request one. Hi, Lynn Haggerty. Can I just request one thing? Could we have the recycle bins for that day? There are extra recycle bins placed on site for that day, if possible.
We'll work
We
with you.
picked the 13th or the 27th.
Yeah, did you want, I think we did we do it that way last year?
I
we
got
have a dump
recycle
truck.
bins from the board. I requested them from the Board of Health and the DPW assisted. So if we could just have extra recycle bins that day, that would be helpful. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I think once we meet with Conservation and the Friends of Upton State Forest, why don't we have kind of a planning meeting? So we can make sure we capture all those items, work with the DPW, the Board of Health, because it sounds like there's a lot of things coming at us right now, and I'd rather have a planning meeting and set all this stuff straight,
Okay, I have a list.
if you don't mind.
Mhm.
So I know they also provided a dump truck last year and
Yeah.
some bags, or you both provide the bags, I forget.
I usually have a lot left over from other events.
So,
I have a good supply. I've had some rain out, so I've got some extra if you need 'em.
Okay,
sounds good.
that sounds good, yeah.
All right, thank you. As a parting gift, I just want to leave you, this is a car litter bag. So you can put in your
Thank you.
cards, some information about the corridor.
Very good, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So again, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Look forward to
Good night.
working with you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See you. Thank you. Yes. All right.
Okay. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, Selectman Simus is away on vacation with his family tonight, so, moving along. Next, we have an appointment to the Personnel Board. Mr. John Westling has applied for the vacant position on the town's Personnel Board. Mr. Westling is currently the DPW Director for the town of Hopkins and has 30-plus years of municipal experience. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
So, we usually just have all candidates introduce themselves and give us a little reason why they'd like to serve.
Sure. As you stated, my name is John Westerling, and my wife and I are residents of Upton. We have selected Upton as our home, and this is our community, and I'm looking for a way to give back to my community, to become a more active member, and what better way than to use 30-plus years of experience the past 15 as a manager, as a director of public works, with experience in conflict resolution, contract negotiation, personnel benefits, and personnel laws. So looking forward to this opportunity.
Any questions, Steve?
Very good. And you have had a chance to attend one of the personnel board meetings?
To date, I have not,
Okay.
but I have reviewed the personnel bylaw and the personnel policy.
Very good.
So, I know Mr. Westling personally. We've worked together a few times in Hopkinton, and I was looking at your application, and I had to kind of chuckle because this will be the third town employee from Hopkinton to apply for a personnel board position.
So, through the chair, truth be told, Maria Glenn had planted the seed
Yeah.
in my mind to become a member, and I want to thank the chairman, Scott Van Walton, for bringing my name forward.
Very good. Okay.
Make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint John Westerling to the personnel board.
I'll second that, and it's a majority action.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Very much. Appreciate your time.
Yes.
Our next agenda item is a right of first refusal of a 40B home. The town has received notice from Kristen Scott that her resident at 59 Milton Circle has been placed on the market. According to the Citizens Housing and Planning Association, the town of Upton has the first right refusal on this property. Tonight we are going to discuss whether we want to exercise this right or waive this right. So, would you like me to start, or any questions?
Go ahead. I know myself personally, it appeared as though in the short run it would remain affordable housing unit.
Yep.
I actually spoke with Derek regarding this, so don't know if you have anything else to.
No, I'm personally in favor of waiving our right. I don't want to become a middleman or a property manager, so I'd rather just notify her she can sell it through the,
Do you want to talk just a minute about the process?
Yeah, just so the folks at home understand. So this is a property that's located up in Milton Circle, was part of a 40B project. And this property counts towards our 10% affordable housing units here in town. The current property owner plans to sell this. The property owner has up until 120 days to sell this at an affordable housing rate. However, if there is not an eligible buyer, the property owner then has the ability to sell it at market rate. The unfortunate thing is if it is sold at market rate, we lose that towards our housing stock as affordable housing unit. Any proceeds that are above the affordable sale rate to the market rate, that net proceed would then be returned to the town of Upton, to the Affordable Housing Trust to be put towards affordable units here in town. But the hope is that we can continue to try to find eligible buyers because we really want these units to count towards the 10%. So there's a process that we have to follow, but I think if we work closely with the Affordable Housing Trust and with CHAPA, we know there are a lot of families out there that are in great need for affordable housing, so I wouldn't anticipate having a problem selling this unit.
This would be coordinated through the Affordable Housing Trust?
It'll be coordinated through CHAPA. They monitor all of our affordable housing units in this development. But we'll work with our Affordable Housing Trust, let them know. They've already been notified of this sale, just to get the word out there, help us market it, advertise it, just so we can ensure that this unit itself stays with the town as an affordable unit.
Okay,
any questions, Steve?
I have nothing else.
Can I make a motion?
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we refuse the option to purchase this property under the affordable housing eligibility requirement.
I'll second that, and it's a majority action. Our next agenda item is a one-day liquor license for BVT. This request is a one-day liquor license for March 21st, 2019. It is for the annual superintendent's dinner, which we have approved a one-day liquor license for previously. Is there any more with the application? Have they provided insurance certification?
I'm still waiting for the insurance, so if you can make the motion contingent upon receipt.
Okay.
Go ahead if you want to.
It's been vetted by police and fire.
Okay.
And this is every year, this superintendent's dinner for the folks at home takes place every year.
Yeah, and I believe they have certified servers too.
Tip certified?
Yeah. Make a motion that we authorize BVT a one-day liquor license on March 21st contingent upon providing insurance certification.
I second the motion.
It's majority action. Our next motion we have is to accept donations on the behalf of the Council on Aging. The Council on Aging has received 4 donations in the memory of Jane Humes. The Council on Aging is asking us to accept the donations in the following amounts. $10 from Norma Earl, $25 from Marilyn Gaffney, $100 from Margaret Taft, and $200 from Deborah LeBlanc. Any questions?
I have no questions.
You want me to make the motion?
I'll read it off as a motion.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we accept the following amounts made to the made to the Upton Council of Aging on behalf of Jane Humes. Norma Earl for $10, Marilyn Gaffney, $25, Margaret Taft, $100, and Deborah LeBlanc, $200, for a total of $335.
I'll second that motion. It's majority action. Moving along. Our next item is to discuss vandalism to a private resident of a town employee. On August 30th, 2018, around 11 p.m., the building inspector called Upton Police Department to report a case of vandalism to his private residence. The vandalism included eggs and rocks being thrown at his car and home, and an oil-like substance being dumped in his driveway, damaging a 10 by 20 area. The police department has investigated this case and has a suspect, but is unable to prove it beyond reasonable doubt. Mr. Roach is asking for reimbursement for damages done to his driveway. I've read the police report and I've talked to the officers involved, and I personally believe this is retaliation against Mr. Roach enforcing building codes and town bylaws. So I think it's the correct thing for the town to do in fixing the damages.
Yes, I as well read the report, and it seems pretty clear that it was a retaliation act against him. So my feeling is, he should not suffer the consequences for actions on behalf of the town. So.
And he's only asking for the damages to the driveway. He's gone through his insurance, I believe, for the cars, and he's also done other security measures on his own, and he's not asking for any extra reimbursement other than the driveway. So,
You want to make a motion?
yeah, we just got to figure out the way where we're going to get the money. Do you know of any fund other than the,
W. Knowlton?
yeah,
The only other one that I think may,
how about the distress one?
right, I was thinking the Knowlton Distress, maybe the other one that would fit that.
As opposed to the welfare fund?
Yeah, I don't think it would qualify for welfare.
Do we need a ruling on the distress one, or
I don't have
the will?
the deeds, yeah, I don't have the wills with me right now.
Oh, speak up, Lon, okay, sorry. Yeah, we're just discussing what trust fund we'd like to pay this from. We're down to either the Knowlton Distress, and we're trying to figure out whether it qualifies, and neither of us have the will at this time, so.
Or the W. Knowlton, which can be used for
Anything.
by the selectmen for any public purpose, which obviously qualifies in this case. So I think the last time you used a W. Knowlton was $5,000 was directed to the EDC.
Yep.
So you stand about $65,000 remaining in that account.
Did you want to try to use the distress fund, or did you want to just use the?
I would like to use the distress fund, because could we make like a motion to use the distress fund, but if we find out it can't, then we can revert back to the.
You could do that, yeah.
Go ahead if you want.
So, I make a motion to authorize $4,752 from the Knowlton Distress Fund upon clearance through council. If it's not approved through council, then it will revert back to the William Knowlton Trust.
Second the motion?
The majority action? Figure that out, Sandy?
Yeah, what was the total, 4700?
$4,752. Next is the DPW budget. Mr. Westgate, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here tonight to present the Public Works Department budget for fiscal year 20. I know you have copies of the budget books and my recommendations, and I'm going to, if it pleases you, I'm going to touch upon the highlights. As you know, the Department of Public Works is broken up into 4 divisions. We have a highway division, a parks and cemetery division, a water and a wastewater division. So I'm going to go through each one of them, touching upon the highlights, and if you stop me at any time if you have any questions. So the highway division this year, for 2020, I'm recommending a budget of $1,055,938. This is an increase from last year's budget of $80,716. $30,717 of that is in wages, and I'll break that down quickly for you. 2.5% COLA, which is scheduled for DPW to receive as of July 1. In addition, there is a 2% COLA that was not received by the majority of the workers last year as their contract just got settled. This is a 52.2-week year. The difference in the COLA also affects their overtime, the working foreman differential, and the on-call stipends. And then the biggest change is there's a department specialist that is part-time in the highway department that I am recommending to go full-time. But I'm not just recommending the person to go full-time, I'm recommending that currently there is a full-time clerical that is split 50-50 between water and sewer and highway and parks and cemetery. And last year we put a part-time 19.5-hour-a-week position in there. I'm recommending to move the full-time clerical over to water completely, and the part-time clerical to full-time in highway, parks and cemeteries, and all of our road management and major projects. That equates to an increase of $9,959 by moving that position full-time. And the reason why it's so low is because there is already 50% of a full-time position being taken out of there and a part-time position being taken out of there. So I'm recommending just to make a full-time position taken out of there. That's why the increase seems, if it seems small to you. And that's the wages.
So this part-time employee doesn't receive benefits yet, correct?
Correct.
Benefits figured into that?
It is not, benefits would add another $4,510.
I think what we've been trying to do in the short run is to try to control the budget as best we can and not add any more full-time employees. We're still waiting kind of for some final numbers. School numbers are still up in the air, and as well as that, we know we have a problem with OPEB. So I'm thinking if we can hold off on this personnel move, you know, we can revisit this in either the fall or the spring, but I think if we can just cross that out for now, and again, revisit that in either November or next May, and just get a better look at how this is gonna play out from a total budget standpoint. And also, I think you have a personnel move in your office as well, so we'll see how this all plays out before we move that position to full-time. And then we're also consistent because we denied some other boards, some other departments that had asked for additional hours and additional overtime and things of that nature, so trying to stay consistent.
Through the chair, if I may.
Okay.
I fully understand. It's difficult anytime you're talking about adding positions. It's one of the more difficult things you can bring forward. I think that this board knows me by now that I wouldn't bring anything that I didn't feel the department truly needs. I do understand timing is always an important key to everything that we do, and it sounds like I have the support of the board, but at a future date. And I understand that, and I can respect that.
Okay.
As we go forward, just to save time, all of the 2.5%, the 2%, the 52.2, and the contractual stuff is going to be in every single one of the divisions.
Okay.
That's gonna be the difference. Otherwise, there's nothing else. Expenses for highway, there's an increase of $50,000, and it breaks down as such. $10,000 is our annual increase to our snow removal, bringing it from $240,000 to $250,000. I'm asking for $10,000 in vehicle maintenance and repair, and I'm asking for this money specifically to try to save the town money by, as you know, we don't have a wash bay. A lot of our the truck that we just replaced last year, on last town meeting for $165,000, the key factor in that truck was the frame had rotted to the point where the truck was not safe anymore, or would not be able to be safe for another upcoming year or worth putting an investment into. That's true for a lot of our equipment. If you look around and you look at our loader and our backhoe, and we take very good care of our equipment, and we're definitely getting more life than the manufacturers suggest we could get. I'm just looking to extend that by adding $10,000 for sandblasting and painting equipment every year. We pick so many pieces of equipment. Perhaps this year we do a frame on a body and a couple of plows. Next year maybe we do the cab on the loader and the backhoe. And this is going to extend the life. And we'll reap the benefits by not having to replace this equipment as often.
Now, do you,
Because these pieces of equipment are very expensive.
are you able to do this internally, or will this be sent out?
This will be subbed out.
Now, is, any way, like Blackstone Valley, the kids can do anything like that?
I could certainly look into that, Mr. Chairman. It's a great idea.
'Cause I know they're always looking for projects, and
Usually they'll provide free labor and we have to pay for materials, is what most schools do.
but even,
offer
yeah,
that.
pay the materials, we could get a lot of good work, and
Absolutely.
All right, what's our current, without digging through the 19 budget, what is our current maintenance budget right now? Should have looked earlier. It was on my list of things to do. I'm just wondering when we present the budget, I just want to kind of know what the number's was and what it's going to become.
It'll take me a moment to find it.
Maintenance,
Building
maintenance is 8,500. It's broken down to
Vehicle, looks like we
general
have
highway materials is 22,000.
line 138 maybe. I've got vehicle maintenance and repair. Is that the line item we'd be talking about?
That's it.
So it looks like then for 19, fiscal 19, we're at $33,660?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm asking for an additional 10,000. As you can see, we break that down in what we do with the money. So I'm asking to add a line item for $10,000 within that breakdown that suggests it'd be just for sandblasting and painting of our equipment, try to extend its lifespan.
Okay.
the, jumping ahead of that one bullet point in front, is there any reason you want to increase the snow budget instead of running a deficit?
The snow budget is
Yeah.
under the impression that we want to increase that budget by about 10,000. Speaking with the finance committee
Is
and
that what you guys want to do?
the town manager, we're looking to increase that roughly $10,000 a year to get it more in line with what our average would be.
I think we had year after year after year, we had that plug number around 200, 210,000. I think the last few years, we picked up 10,000 in there, but
We've been going over the last 2 years, approximately 125,000 we've been exceeding. So the thought process is trying to close that gap. Certainly, you don't want to have a budget to that number. You always want to stay below that number. But the thought is if we can put that in operations, and we're losing less and less of our free cash every year.
yeah.
It's a thought. But again, I would echo Dennis's comments that given some new information regarding the budget with the schools and with trash, maybe this isn't the time of year to do this. Maybe we have to rely on some free cash for next year to cover that deficit. We know we're gonna have a deficit next year, we can all agree to that.
Right.
But given some of the new information that came forward with the Board of Health and the school committee, maybe this isn't the time of year to increase that line item.
Yeah, and I think for folks at home, we do always run over on snow and ice, so it's a matter of what that warrant article is gonna look like in May,
Right.
typically, so. Yeah, I think that may be a good idea, is if we just stay, since we're picking up some additional dollars and some other line items, if we keep our same snow removal budget for next year. If that sounds good with you?
It's last year, it's this
Oh,
year.
I'm sorry, for fiscal 19. So we'll keep the same number
So you want to keep it level funded and not do the 10,000?
and not add the 10,000.
You have to now, I pulled out the red pen.
Okay.
That's Steve's favorite color.
So snow removal, which is line 130
Yep.
in last year's budget. So we had gone from 220, 230, 240. So again, we'll just hold the line then at 240, 240,000. Okay.
Understood? The last item in that $50,000, which is now $40,000 increase, is $30,000, which is from our stormwater mandate. In December, I submitted our annual report. We have been receiving comments, and I don't want to use the word arguing, but commenting back and forth with the DEP for several years now. We've been in limbo since our last MS4 permit for NIPD's, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. In December, I submitted on behalf of the town our new, according with their rules and regulations, Upton's new permit. And I'm happy to say we were one of only 20 communities to receive the authorization to go forward, and we actually received our NIPD's permit. However, in the permit and the new rules and regulations, in past rules and regulations, there was ownership of the town to identify all of our point source discharges, all of the points in town where we had a discharge. And going forward, now that we've identified them all, there are stricter regulations in the new one which require us to do illicit discharge detection elimination. We have to actually write a program on how we're going to do this annually and submit it to the DEP. This board, I'll bring it to this board will need to vote on it, and then we'll need to do regular inspections and testing of all these discharge areas.
How many discharge areas are there? Just out of
Off the
curiosity.
top of my head, I'm sorry I don't have that number with me.
And do you have to, is it like monitoring equipment, or do you just have to go out and visit them?
It's a third party, so we're required, we already have identified all of the point source discharges. They're located on GIS mapping. So it's a third party that we have to go out to bid with and have them come in and do detection services. And DEP provides the threshold for which that detection is.
What, they just look for like
They're looking
debris
for
or
everything.
chemicals
They're looking
or
for
oil?
suspended solids, they're looking for phosphates, they're looking for everything. Nitrogen levels, there's tolerances for everything. It's similar to the NIPD's permit that we have for the wastewater treatment plant, which our new rule will be coming in the next year for that one, which will be considerably more costly than this one. I have stronger numbers from our consultants to increase that. They recommended $50,000, but I'm always, let's walk before we run. You know, taking a look at what we're going to be doing and understanding what we're going to be doing, I think $30,000 is sufficient.
Do you think there's any chance, again, we have to implement it, so do you think there's any chance moving forward that number would shrink by any chance?
There's always a possibility, depending on what we find in our first year. It's in its infancy, so we haven't done discharge detection in this community yet. This will be the first round. If we get favorable responses and it looks like we're really good, we're really clean, there's a potential that we could reduce that slightly next year. I won't know until I get the first round done. We also need to write a policy as part of this money and go through the planning board process, public hearing, for right now when a subdivision comes in and they're going to clear cut acreage of land, they're allowed to just come in and clear cut the land and make room for the homes. Through National Pollutant Discharge Elimination, our MS4 permit, we're actually required to put a policy together that says you're required to have an engineer come in and tell us what your 5, 10, 15, 50, and 100-year storms are like before you clear cut it, and what it's going to be like after you clear cut it and you put miles of impervious road down and build homes with potentially septic systems or wells, or all that needs to be incorporated, and that'll be another policy I'll be bringing before the board.
And that would only be on subdivisions?
Correct. All right, I use subdivisions, but I correct myself. Anyone that comes before the planning or any other boards or commissions in this town looking to build over a certain acreage of land, and their intent is to clear cut. And that concludes highway. Any other questions?
Yeah, any more?
Parks and Cemetery, we talked about the 2.5% to 2% and the 52.2 weeks. This represents an increase in $6,659. It's all contractual. In expenses, there is a request for $6,500 increase, and this is under aquatic weed control. If you recall, some time ago, I'm learning as this year went along, that we actually had a commission that was in charge of this at one time, and there was double that money in a fund that was under their care. We still have a contract in place with a company called Solitude, who comes down and monitors our lakes and ponds, and they had developed a program where they skip every so many years. Every other year, they're addressing certain ponds. But $6,500, somewhere along the line, that got cut from $13,000. Meeting with the representatives from Aquatic Weed Control, they feel that 13 was the bare minimum, and that would not treat all the ponds in 1 year. That was keeping up with it. After you get it to a certain level of control, you're able to maintain that level of control. This year, they will be using the $6,500 I have in there to treat some ponds in the early spring, and that will complete their contractual obligation. I think there was a year where we had to raise, I'm told there was a year we had to raise and appropriate $30,000 to bring the ponds back from really poor shape many years ago. So all I'm looking to do is restore that line item back to what it should be to be able to maintain those ponds.
So,
Was there an issue, now, actually, I'm thinking about this.
actually, there was that thing in the pond was a different color. Was that last year?
Algae bloom.
Yeah.
Wasn't this past summer, it was the summer before.
Was
they
that
had
2
that
summers ago
algae.
already? Jeez.
They were able to control it this year. But that's a problem. If you don't apply copper sulfate, is a chemical that's used regularly. If you don't apply that early in the season, then you're gonna, if you have a very hot, humid summer, you're gonna have an algae bloom. And I think that's what happened. They didn't anticipate that 2 years ago. So the summer of 2017, they had to close the beach the last couple weeks of the summer.
That's right, I remember that. Wasn't some of this funded through the Board of Health, though? Wasn't there an issue where some of the aquatic weed control was through Board of Health and some of it was through, I'm wondering if that's why that number was off, if somehow it got moved over.
I'm not aware of any other funds available.
Conservation Commission, I'm looking up that right now.
There's also another question that had arisen a few weeks ago. There was an idea to fund some lifeguard, I think there was $15,000 of lifeguard services. I think
That's in the recreations budget.
it's in the recreational budget, not in, okay. I thought that for a while that it was going to be put under Parks and Recreation.
No, it's part of the recreation budget's operating budget. But you're right, though, the request from the Recreation Commission was to increase, and that's a tax levy contribution to the recreation budget for lifeguards. It was $8,000. They requested to go to $23,000. And that's before the Finance Committee.
Yeah. The only thing I see in the Board of Health is $1,000 for beach testing.
That's so people can swim
Yeah.
safely.
That's a simple.
The testing for total coliform.
Okay.
That concludes parks and cemeteries. Any
Any other
questions?
questions, Steve?
I don't, no, I'm good.
So the Water Division recommended the fiscal 2020 budget be $1,045,441. This is actually a $306,000, 107 decrease from last year's budget. And the decrease is because capital outlay is reduced in request this year from 322 to 100, and the debt service has reduced from 382,695 to 278,663. So the overall budget itself has decreased. However, wages and expenses has a slight increase. We've gone over the wages. It equates to $10,138, and again, it's the 2.5%, the 2%, the 52.2, and the differential for the working foreman and on-call stipend. Since we have elected not to pursue the full-time position, then that's department specialists will get removed from there and stay as it is.
Okay. And the capital outlay, did we complete the 5-year asbestos concrete pipe?
We have not completed our asbestos concrete removal. I'm actually going out to bid right now to remove a couple $100,000 more of stuff that we have in line with our road management plan. I'm trying not to open up any roads, trying to hit the roads that we want to pave, that we know we have AC pipe. Because we have a company coming in to do a complete assessment, remember last town meeting, I had requested some funds to hire a company. Because they're gonna come in and do a complete assessment of both water and wastewater, I pulled back on capital outlay in both water and wastewater and went after some core things that needed to be done. So in water, you have the roof at the West River Pump Station. This is in the capital plan. The Glen Ave generator, we replaced that generator not that long ago, but for some reason, we never put a transfer switch in. Don't have much to say about that. Pearl Street tank, the pavement is in disrepair, weeds are growing through it, and I'm looking to just repair that. And for the wastewater treatment plant, there are some housekeeping items identified in our capital improvement plan within the plant itself, the sand screen and some other areas that have deteriorated, and I'm looking to fix them up this year. So I'm only looking for $100,000 out of both. There are healthy retained earnings in both of those divisions, but I really want to see, there's a couple of things that's on my radar. One is, I want to see what this assessment is going to discover. And two, we have our new rule coming down for NIPDs for the sewer plant. And every single time we have one of these, it usually comes with a price tag.
Any idea when that plan or that study will be completed?
I'd like to have it done by spring. In the spring, I should say.
If I could, just because Steve raised two questions, I was just wanting to get on the right information before we break tonight. On page 114, that speaks to your question relative to the beach staff. You'll see here, and again, it's on the Recreation Commission's budget. They've gone from a budget of, in FY19 of $8,000. Their request this year in FY20 is for $23,200 for beach staff. So that answers one question. And then to your other question, Steve, on page 98, under the Conservation Commission, so just so folks are clear, the committees are elected boards and committees. They present their budgets to the Finance Committee, so that's why you wouldn't normally have had that conversation with the Recreation Commission. Finance Committee is speaking to them as we speak. But on page 98, under aquatic weed control, the Conservation Committee in FY19 had a budget line item of $6,500. This year, they're looking to double that at $13,000. There was another question you asked about. You
Yes.
thought there was other money in the budget for aquatic weed control?
Right, so I guess my question is, we're seeing it in two different parts of the budget. We have some overlap there. Or something, I think we just have to look into that. So conservation, I guess we'd have to find it, did they expend that last year? Are they spending it year by year?
Yeah, I can follow up with Kenny to see how much they spent last year.
So for some reason, it's covered twice in the budget. I'm not
Feel
sure.
free to move that right out of my budget, but under the conservation. I'd be perfectly content with that.
We may
Just
be
saying.
able to oblige for you.
Maybe we'll give it to all of you.
My request is for $13,000 from the $6,500.
Right, so that's double.
Be sure it's not the same line item, just in a different place. Because I know some of my line items, like animal control, and they're within the Public Works Department, but the actual account numbers are in other departments.
Right. Yeah,
We had an
that's-
issue, I think, last year or the year before regarding beaver management, where beaver management also was,
It's half under Board of Health and half under
right,
Conservation.
neither board wanted to kind of relinquish their authority, so for some reason it was kind of delegated more or less 50-50 amongst the two boards. So same with aquatic weed control, as long as we can just make sure that,
So the
Numbers
easiest way to discover that is just to look at the account numbers.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
The account numbers are identical under mine and conservation. There isn't duplicates, it's one line item.
yeah, 98.
I haven't seen the budget
Well,
for
see-
last year.
Who's that?
Conservation, I don't see it.
5301, I guess, would be the account number on that one.
I didn't see an account number for,
There's beaver management, that's the 50%.
I don't know if we get an account number in here. We don't.
We need last year's budget.
Right. So see, you get an account number here,
This is,
under the Conservation
I
Commission.
think it's under conservation, but the DPW is managing it. I think that's,
So that means there was only one line item.
right.
It's only $13,000.
Okay, so it's showing up on both pages as 13,000. They're picking up 65 on one page.
It's only in the, so these pages right here, that's our accounting software. So that's only been entered once in the accounting software. But to the point earlier about beaver management, Conservation Commission requests the money, and then they turn it over to the DPW to manage that work on their behalf.
Okay, well, we can sort through that at a later date. We'll figure that part out. Make sure we have it right.
And then the last division, if there's no other questions on water, is wastewater. I'm recommending the wastewater budget this year is $725,868. This is a decrease from last year's budget of $383,107. This is primarily due to a decrease in capital outlay, went from $263 to $100,000. And if you notice, there was a large amount of debt service that dropped off. We had $258,832 in debt service last year. This year, $8,363. We paid off the wastewater treatment plant.
Will the residents see any savings? All this debt coming off?
The capital outlay and the debt goes on the surcharge part of it. The wages and the expenses goes on the rate that you gentlemen vote on, which I'll be coming in front of you shortly. So there was a slight increase over the last fiscal year for wages and expenses, and it is slight. So I will be recommending a slight increase in the rates, but they will probably be some of the smaller increases the town has seen in a long time.
But so on the surcharge portion of the bill, residents should see some savings there? Would that kind of a drop off?
Yes, I'm sorry, excellent question, yes. So the surcharge part of it will have a reduction because our capital outlay and our debt have reduced.
Right, from
Yes.
$258,000 down to $8,363, so that's a big, significant.
So 2020 should be a kinder year for water and sewer bills.
Okay, very good.
And I'd add to that, that we've had considerable debt payments that we were funding through the tax levy, through the wastewater enterprise. And so, though, as you all know, a lot of that debt came off as of, we'll see it in FY '20, that debt coming off.
How do you expect these new projects coming online to affect the water and sewer bills?
They should generate revenue. My concern always is that we have the proper infrastructure and capabilities to meet their demands, and that's one of the things that the assessment is going to focus on. With water and enterprise accounts, it's a business. The more the merrier. That's how we make money. And we don't really make money, but we try to offset debt.
Right.
So that keeps our rate lower. And that is the budget, gentlemen.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Natalian?
I do not, I think we have dissected it pretty good for now. We can reach out to you if we have any other questions.
Always available.
Mr. Manager?
Other than the changes that we discussed, are you going to vote on this budget this evening, or are you going to wait for Selectman Simons to return?
Just gonna move along, we're gonna do it.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to make the motion?
Sure.
Or would you like to-
Make the
well,
sure, you got it.
subject to, right? Yeah.
Well, you have to know about the weed control.
Yeah.
Right, we'll look into that, just to make sure it's not double counted.
Yeah.
If it's double counted, I assume we're gonna remove one.
Right.
Okay. If it's not double counted, we're gonna stay with 13,000, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We got a question out there.
Hi, Michelle Angelelli, 148 South Street. I just have a question. I actually attended the finance committee meeting, so I know the answer to this question, but could you please explain what amount we have in retained earnings?
I don't have exact amount with me. One of them has slightly over 400,000 and the other one has slightly over 600,000. I believe water has the 600,000 and wastewater has the 400,000. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You expected us to grill you.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the budget presented by Mr. Westgate for the DPW, Department of Public Works, also for the water, the wastewater, and the parks and forestry and cemetery divisions of the budget, subject to the corrections that we made in the budget.
You got all that, Sandy?
Yeah, do you want to list those or just?
That was the removal of the,
Yeah, the removal of $9,959.
Removal of the $10,000 from,
the snow,
No.
DPW snow
Snow.
removal.
and then looking into the 6,500 weed control.
Right, we
Yeah. And I'll second that. It's majority action. Thank you, sir.
I was just going, one other quick question, speaking of the weed control. Roughly, how many ponds and water, how many waterways do we actually treat in town?
top of my head, I don't have them all. We have quite a few.
Really?
I mean, one of the largest obviously is Pratt Wildwood. There's quite a few that we do, and the residents live on them. I know this particular year, I received an awful lot of phone calls during the summer from residents who lived on these ponds. Pratt Pond, Wildwood Pond, I think there was one other one too, it's escaping me, but with concerns over the weed growth and whether or not we were staying on top of it. And I assured them that I had just got here, I'd only been here for 6 months at the time when I was speaking with them, that I'd be looking into it and make sure that we had a sufficient budget to address their concerns.
And that 4-log system running okay?
Complete, finished.
Very good.
You guys don't want to snow and ice up there?
If you want to give us one. Are you under budget or over budget?
I'm under so far. So we've had 13 events, one recent, we were out last night, obviously, and yesterday, and we are right around the $170,000 mark for the 13 events, out of a $240,000 budget, give or take a few grand. There's still some bills trickling in, but
178, you said?
170,
How's your salt and sand supply?
getting filled as we speak, and that's taken into account.
Yeah.
But I would just caution everybody that last year we had 3 nor'easters in March. So we're not out of this yet. So we'll talk about this on April 15th, maybe.
And your trucks are holding up okay? No major breaks?
We've had some breakdowns. Last storm, our biggest challenge was we had quite a few individuals out. We had 2 out on FMLA, and 1 individual home sick with the flu, and 1 in the hospital having a procedure. So, four of my staff in a storm, major storm. That's over a quarter of my staff.
Yeah, we heard you were out plowing salt and sand.
That's all rumors.
There were also last,
You have to teach Derek how to drive.
Barely drive a Jeep, let alone a truck.
one other quick question. We had a truck last year that got damaged. I think a tree or a limb broke of some sort and damaged
Yes.
the roof corner of the cab.
That truck is back in action.
It is back. Okay, that was my
We
question.
got that back before winter started. They did a great job on it. They actually repaired the cab, because that was a truck that we received years ago. We purchased through a program, I think we purchased it for the state. So here's an older vehicle that had really low miles on it, and we had taken very good care of it.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, let's see. We don't have a town manager's report tonight. Any new business?
I have nothing.
For look ahead, we have a financial reserve policy, and we also got to put the South Street, results from the South Street traffic study. Do we need to vote on that, or?
Yeah, I think we should vote on it. I think we, it came before the board a couple months ago in an open session.
Oh,
and we got the results back, and I'll just talk a little bit about it. I wish Dennis didn't leave. They leave?
No one can do a whistle, come on.
Well, it's not on the. Oh, yeah.
Dennis, we just, Chairman just wanted us to briefly touch upon the South Street engineering study.
I'd like to say, this is the first traffic study that I think I've really received in 3 years that was as detailed and explained a lot, and I really appreciate that company that you used.
So as it turns out, as you can see by the study, there really isn't, another stop sign is really not warranted in this location. And one of the things that we need to be careful of is that we don't create a more dangerous intersection by adding more traffic control devices, and I think that's what the benefit of a study like this is for.
Right, yeah, I was surprised myself at the low car count.
Right.
I thought it would be significantly higher, but I was not in favor of the stop sign anyways, so.
At least now we can say we make our decision based off an engineer, and it's,
Absolutely. It was done by a traffic engineer and stamped.
so. Are we, you know, if in the future, if we can clear back that brush?
Yeah,
that was
take a look at
recommended?
where the boundary lines are. I mean, their recommendation was to do some vegetation cutback, and I haven't really taken a hard look because of the weather,
Right.
what vegetation, I mean, they're available to meet out there with me so I can get a better idea of it, but this spring I'll meet with them and when we're doing our cutback, and I'll take a hard look at that.
So the recommendation is not to change that intersection, adding new stops, or taking out any old stops.
Take no action on the
Right.
request.
That's right.
Put on the agenda and decide whether we have to vote on it or not, or just take no action.
Yeah, if we're gonna vote on it, we'd want to put on the agenda in advance.
If you don't take no action, we just leave it as it is.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Very good, thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep. Let's
Come
see.
get you in 5 seconds.
Thank you.
Everyone take us on. Is there any public comments this evening? Joe?
Thank you. Michelle Antonelli, 148 South Street.
evening.
I'm just,
Good evening.
good evening. I'm just expressing a little concern. I've seen multiple times on the Board of Selectmen meeting that you've had executive session to address public citizen in need, and I'm hoping, I don't know what I'm hoping. I guess what I wanted to know is if there are ways the community can help beyond financial assistance or whatever, that while respecting the privacy of the individuals or individual involved, that you could think of some way of doing some outreach along those lines. And I guess I would also be concerned if we're talking about multiple families, that would be something that our community should know about, whether or not it's, I don't know, it's just concerning seeing it week after week coming in and knowing that you guys are involved in trying to help one or more people, and just any way in which.
Well, usually it's, it'll be the same one a couple weeks in a row because somebody will submit us a letter with a name, and then we have to approve it to go to Counseling on Aging, and they vet the individual, and then they come back with the results, and then we vote on it.
Oh, okay, so
It's
it
not
isn't
like
like we've
every
had a big rush because of the federal shutdown or anything. I was,
So the past 3 weeks, it's actually been the same family.
okay, all right. Well, again, same situation. It's not always financial assistance that's needed. It
I'm
can
not
be
sure where we can go with their confidentiality and that kind of stuff.
Exactly, and I respect that, but I mean, if we're looking at
And also, yeah,
winter codes.
I would actually reach out to the Council on Aging, Janice, and
Okay.
she would be able to tell you if you could help in any way.
Thank you.
and 2 other quick things I wanted to touch on. When the executive session minutes are released, you kind of will get a feel for what the issue may or may not be. So it does become public in that respect, so the information is there. And the other thing also is, I've noticed we've had some requests in the past also from the Bloomer Girls. So that's also, requests will come through that way. Men's Club and Bloomer Girls actually do a lot for people that, sometimes easy things. Somebody's sick in the hospital, giving rides back and forth to the hospital, or giving rides back and forth to treatments, helping people move, boxing up items, storing things. Even we had, there was a request, again, it was through, I think it was the Bloomer Girls, somebody needed their dog walked. They were gone all day. In fact, I think you may know the person, Ms. Haggerty. You may have known this story, but they had to spend long days at the hospital. The dog needed to be tended to, so there's a situation where something that's, pretty easy, the residents will step up and just do a simple chore like that, but it really frees up a lot of time for the individual. So, there are.
Yeah, and once the town learns of folks in need, the Council on Aging, they do a really good job, in particular Jessica, meeting with those families, trying to find them any assistance that's out there. So whether it's fuel assistance or SNAP assistance or food. So they do a really good job trying to connect them to those social services. But I think to your point, Michelle, we don't know what we don't know. And so, we could probably always think of new ways to try to get that information out there, because the COA, they do have a lot of different resources that they're able to bring to bear for folks that are in need.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing all that. It's just concerning. You see it multiple times, and you start to think it's risen to a level that aside from what you can do financially, that there might be other things that townspeople would be willing to help with, so, thank you.
Thank you for, yes, sir.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Any other comments?
Let's see. No other public comment, then I guess, make a motion to adjourn, unless you got something.
No, I was just double checking. Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second the motion.
Nah, majority.
A motion to double check.
Yeah.
All right.
Bada bing, bada boom.